Ever feel like applying for jobs, especially at like those dream companies, is like sending your resume into a black hole?
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Right.
Let's decode this mysterious world of recruiters and hiring processes.
Yeah.
Arming you with insider knowledge for your next interview.
Okay.
Today's deep dive is all about getting you that much closer to landing your dream job.
Right.
We've got a treasure trove of insights from a former Google recruiter,
Oh, cool.
Farah Shargi, who spills the beans in her YouTube video.
Nice.
Plus, we'll tap into a practical guide from Total Jobs on what interviewers actually look for.
Okay.
One thing that really jumped out from Farah's video was her comparing recruiters to, like, professional matchmakers and even stalkers.
It does sound a little intense, doesn't it?
Right.
But if you think about it from their perspective, it makes sense. Recruiters are often juggling numerous roles across different teams. They need to connect the right person with the right opportunity, and fast. Efficiency is key.
So it's not personal, it's about finding that perfect fit, like a puzzle piece, as Farah mentions in her video.
Exactly. And you wouldn't believe how many people apply for jobs they're simply not qualified for.
Oh, really?
Farah actually throws out a pretty staggering statistic, something like 75% of applications.
Wow, 75%. That really highlights why nailing your resume is crucial. Speaking of which, I've always wondered about those applicant tracking systems, the infamous ATS.
Yeah.
Are they really the resume gatekeepers we make them out to be?
They do play a role, especially in larger companies.
Okay.
Farah specifically mentions Workday, a popular HR software that many companies use.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Even with an ATS, a human still reviews your resume.
Okay, so it's not all algorithms and keyword matching.
Not exactly. You've got to remember, those systems are just tools, and like any tool, they have their quirks. Workday, for example, can be a bit finicky with multi-column resumes.
The single column is the way to go then.
Especially for those types of systems. Ultimately, your resume needs to make a strong first impression, regardless of who or what is scanning it.
That makes sense. It's about making it easy for them to see your value. But it's not just about looking good on paper, right?
Right.
How important is researching a company's culture?
It's not just important, it's essential. Remember, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you.
That's a really good point.
Think of it as due diligence before a long-term commitment.
I like that. It's about finding the right fit for both of you.
Absolutely. And one size doesn't fit all. For instance, Farah talks about Google's googliness, this emphasis on collaboration, helpfulness, almost like a big family. Then you have Apple, which is known for being more siloed, secretive, two tech giants with vastly different vibes.
So how do you even begin to figure out if a company's culture is a good match for you?
Information is power. Dive into their website, read their mission statement, browse their social media. How do they present themselves to the world? More importantly, look for employee testimonials. Glassdoor, for all its flaws, can offer some insights.
It's about reading between the lines, right? Getting a feel for the company's personality.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask direct questions during the interview. How does the company promote work-life balance? What are their values? What opportunities for growth are there?
It's about understanding their values and seeing if they align with yours.
Now let's talk about something that often induces anxiety.
Okay.
Interview delays. We've all been there. You ace an interview, the company says they'll be in touch soon, and then crickets.
The worst. Your mind starts racing, wondering what went wrong.
It's natural to feel that way. But here's a different perspective. Sometimes the delay isn't bad news. It might mean they're considering you very seriously.
Wait, really? Tell me more.
Imagine they're interviewing for a role and find someone who exceeds their expectations. They might fast-track that candidate through the process, which could cause delays for others as they see how things play out.
So they're keeping their options open while they make a final decision.
Exactly. It's like finding that perfect puzzle piece, but taking a moment to make absolutely sure it fits before securing it in place.
So a delay doesn't necessarily mean you're out of the running.
Right.
It could actually be a good sign.
Exactly.
But that waiting period can be agonizing.
Yeah.
What can you do in the meantime besides obsessively checking your inbox?
Okay. It's a great opportunity to leverage what's called the halo effect. Think of it as extending that positive impression you made during the interview.
How do you do that without seeming overeager or, stalking them online?
It's all about subtle yet impactful gestures.
Okay.
A well-crafted thank you note, for instance, can go a long way.
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah. It's easy to forget in the whirlwind of the job search. Any tips on making it stand out?
Mention a specific detail from the interview that resonated with you. Maybe it was a company initiative they were excited about or a shared interest you discovered. It shows you were genuinely listening and helps you stay top of mind.
That's so much better than a generic, like, thank you for your time email.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of staying top of mind, this is where LinkedIn can be a powerful tool.
I've always been a bit unsure about connecting with interviewers on LinkedIn. Is it too forward?
It can be if you do it before the interview. But after you've met, it's a natural next step, especially if you're genuinely interested in building a professional relationship.
So connect with them on LinkedIn, but don't send a novel about your qualifications.
Precisely. Keep it simple. Maybe mention something you discussed during the interview. It's about nurturing that connection organically.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk about something that often trips people up. Salary negotiations. It can feel so uncomfortable.
It doesn't have to be. Think of it as a conversation about aligning expectations, not a battle of wills.
Easier said than done, right? Especially when you don't want to lowball yourself, but you also don't want to scare them off with a number that's too high.
This is where research is your best friend.
Okay.
Sites like Glassdoor and Salary.com can provide valuable data, but take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Those figures are often based on averages and might not reflect the nuances of your specific experience or location.
So how do you figure out what you're really worth?
Look beyond the numbers. What impact have you made in your previous roles? How have you contributed to your team's success? Quantify your accomplishments whenever possible. Did you increase sales by a certain percentage? Streamline a process that saved the company money. These are powerful bargaining chips.
It's about showcasing the value you bring to the table, not just your job title.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the actual negotiation, remember the power of phrasing. Instead of blurting out a number, try framing it as a question. Ferry gives a great example in her video. You could say something like, based on my understanding of the role and my experience, I would expect a salary in the range of, insert your range here. Does that align with your expectations?
I love that. It opens up a dialogue and avoids any awkward standoffs.
Exactly. It shows you're thoughtful and strategic, not just focused on the dollar signs. Plus, it gives them a chance to clarify their budget and potentially offer other benefits that might be negotiable, like additional vacation time or professional development opportunities.
It's about finding a win-win, not just a paycheck. Okay, let's say you've nailed the resume, aced the interview, negotiated a great salary. Are there any other potential pitfalls people should be aware of? There's always that moment after accepting a job offer where you might experience a twinge of doubt.
Yeah. It's like buyer's remorse, but for your career.
Yeah.
It's completely normal to question if you made the right decision.
So what can you do to avoid those post-offer jitters?
Remember those questions we discussed earlier about company culture, work-life balance, and growth opportunities?
Yeah.
Don't just ask them. Pay close attention to the answers. Do they align with your values? Do they paint a realistic picture of what it's like to work there?
It's about trusting your gut, right? If something feels off during the interview process, it probably will be later on.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of networking. If you know someone who works or has worked at the company, reach out to them. Get their perspective on what it's really like behind the scenes.
It's like getting an insider's review before you commit.
Precisely. And if you're switching industries or taking on a role that's significantly different from your previous experience, be prepared for a learning curve.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new opportunity and underestimate the challenges.
That's why it's crucial to set realistic expectations, both for yourself and for your new employer. Don't be afraid to ask for support, training, or mentorship during those early days.
It's about setting yourself up for success, not setting yourself up for disappointment.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. What happens if, despite your best efforts, you don't get the job?
It's the part of the job search process no one wants to talk about, but we've all been there.
Rejection is tough no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that it's not a reflection of your worth as a person or a professional.
Easier said than done, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But try to reframe rejection as a redirection. Maybe it wasn't the right fit, or maybe something even better is around the corner.
It's about keeping that positive momentum going, even when it feels challenging.
And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. It can be invaluable for identifying areas where you can improve your interview skills, your resume, or even your job search strategy.
It's about turning that rejection into a learning opportunity.
Precisely. Because at the end of the day, the job search is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, twists and turns, but as long as you stay true to yourself, your values, and your goals, you'll find your way to the right opportunity.
This has been an incredible deep dive, packed with practical advice and insightful perspectives. It's amazing how a few simple shifts in mindset can make the job search feel less daunting and more empowering.
It's all about approaching it with confidence, clarity, and a healthy dose of self-awareness.
And maybe a few dating analogies along the way. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that matters to you. Until then, happy job hunting.